Hello and welcome to the Jann Arden podcast and show. Why is it a show, you say? We don't even know. We just say that because it just sounds more interesting. I'm here with Caitlin Green. She's in her home in Toronto. Sarah Burke is in her studio office/home. And I'm in Springbank, Alberta. And oftentimes people call it Sperm Bank, Alberta. But that's fine. It's still a lovely place to live.
Less classy.
Thank you. We have a great guest today. I've wanted to talk to this young woman for a long time. You may already follow her on social media because that's where I discovered her. I heard these amazing, long, winding poems that just struck a chord about life things, doing things with your friends, friendships, families, just being alive. Like I'm not doing it justice, but I am going to read you one of Josie's poems very shortly. 880,000 followers on TikTok, 750,000 followers on Instagram, which is 4 million more followers than I have. Thank you very much, Josie. You may have heard her warm, distinctive voice on radio stations across Western Canada as well. She is currently one half of the morning show, Mornings with Greg and Josie, on Country 105 in Calgary. And for some reason, 105 stopped playing my music when I refused to perform country music. I'm going to have a discussion with them at some point. She's joining us today because she can now add something else to her arsenal, and that is published author. And she's here to talk to us about her debut poetry book, I Hope You Remember, which is officially out right now. So we are so thrilled to have Josie Balka on the show today. Hi, Josie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So tell me everything. Where did this start? Where did this beautiful sense of being a wordsmith and just putting it out there to share with people these really personal, vulnerable, they're almost like these little poetic stories and images. So where did that start?
I've always really liked writing songs and stuff, and I've always kind of posted that sort of thing online, and I've always posted online just because of my job in media. Like, you kind of try to keep up and do both, like be on air and also be on social media. But when I turned 30 in the summer of 2023, when did I turn 30? I think that was it. Two summers ago. I like had a bit of an existential crisis over it, and I wrote like a poem about turning 30, and I had set this room up to do voiceover work already, so I felt like I had a good space to record in, and worked up the courage to post it, and people seemed to like it. And I know that obviously it's really good to have confidence, but when you have other people also giving you confidence, it helps to kind of move you along and keep trying. And it turned into something way bigger than I ever could have thought.
And is that where did you start with the amount of followers? Like, were you like an average person, had your Instagram account, you had, 5,000 people following you. Was that sort of the catalyst that launched that growing platform for you? Is that sort of where it started?
Yeah, there was a couple different things. I had like about 9 or 10,000 followers on Instagram at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. Just from like radio and like a local thing. And on TikTok, I had a bit more just from like sharing my weight loss journey. I posted a lot about that. So TikTok people were more following that journey. But it was the big jump happened because of this. Yeah. Like, I remember
How
the
much weight
first
did you
poem,
lose?
like 130 pounds.
You fucking did not.
At one point, that was how much I had.
That is incredible. Well, good for you. It's obviously just a choice to walk a new path but it's funny when you start doing social media and that's what I'm talking about, sharing your life, sharing things that were difficult for you, that were obstacles that you just grit your teeth and you threw your shoulders back and you started making these changes. And there's something magical that happens when we document ourselves and when we become diarists in a sense, and especially when you're able to share those images and those ideas. I think it's absolutely magical what you've done with the book, I Hope You Remember. And if you don't mind, I'm going to indulge our listeners because I want to read a little something for you right now that struck a chord in me. And I don't want you to be uncomfortable, but You wrote the damn book, so you're going to have to sit there and listen to
Yeah,
me
have it read to
read
me. This is
read
nice.
you a poem. I don't want to grow old, but I don't want to not grow old. I grieve the ages I used to be all the time, but I'm so scared of all the ages I will be after this one. How can I feel so strongly about both? I mourn the loss of decades that have passed and try to erase the proof that time has paid me a visit with hair dye and eye cream. But laughter keeps making lines on my face that don't go away. I don't want to grow old, but I don't want to stop now. I want all the days I can possibly get, but I still spend so much time wishing today was yesterday, and the thought of moving on scares me to death. Time has frozen for some of the people I love. They have a million yesterdays and no tomorrows. They won't grow old, and I am not envious of them for that, though I sit here with the audacity to say, I hate getting older. If given the option to pause time now and be this age forever, I wouldn't want it, because I don't want to stay behind while everyone I love continues on. I don't want my friends to celebrate birthdays without me. I can't stand the thought of my partner growing old with someone else.
That
Um,
that was
I'll
a good poem. I like that.
I'll stop there. It goes on, but I
It's
mean, I
nice to
could
actually have that read back to me. I like it kind of makes me appreciate it more almost. I don't know if you've like had people perform for you things that you put out there, but it's like
absolutely. I've,
nice.
I've had people cut my songs, and it's a very
Yeah.
surreal experience. That is not the ending of the poem. I'm just going to stop there because obviously we want to talk to Josie. But we talk about aging on this show a lot. I am substantially older than these young women before you, and being 20 plus years older than them, I obviously have a lot more experiences, and I feel very differently about aging than the three of you do. So I just I love the fact that at your age, you are savvy enough and wise enough and sage enough to understand the importance of embracing that older version of yourself.
I think there's just like I always have found this because working in radio, you have to ask people for like their birth date when you give them a prize. And I feel like once you get to a certain age, you're like, oh, do I have to tell you? And I remember just having this thought once that's like, why are you ashamed that you've got like all these guaranteed years on you that I might never get? Like something could happen tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every year I do have like a little bit of like a crisis being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. I'm getting older. But I also have this like, okay, that's another guaranteed year under your belt. And not everybody gets that, like things happen all the time. So it's just an interesting thing that we feel so much shame when it comes to age, but it's actually just all these guaranteed years that not everybody gets.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to hand it over to you, Caitlin, because we all have so many questions we want to ask you. And I always, no, you know what happens, Josie? I hog the guests. I know I do.
Well, I'm curious to know what you were like in high school. Were you creative? Did you always write poems, or was this something that would develop? Like, would your friends have guessed that you would go on to do this?
Think so. In high school, I was always really good in English class and like um drama class and anything like science, religion, history, anything that you have to like retain information, I could not figure out. And I've always had like a very different way of learning, and I've just like really gravitated towards certain things. But in high school, I never would have had the confidence to do anything like this. Because I mean, I I had friends that were really fun, and I really like enjoyed them, and I'm still friends with them now. But like I mentioned earlier, my weight loss, I had no confidence, like at all. And we weren't living in an age in 2007 where everybody was being celebrated and everybody, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think that I definitely that was like a detriment to me that I like had not really found my voice, and I was really bad at like most subjects. But quietly, I was like writing on my own time and doing really well creatively in certain ways. But it was definitely a struggle because I like had very low grades in everything else. But this is something that I've always enjoyed, and I've always been, yeah, more creative leaning than the other way.
That's funny. I relate to that. And I used to work on a morning radio show. And I've often felt like people who were inclined in performing do well in radio because it's such an open conversation. And I think I probably learned similarly to you. And because you get to be in the moment, like you turn your microphone on and you're immediately talking to people. And it's less about having to sit alone with your thoughts and pull together a presentation. I really enjoyed that piece of it because I loved high school drama class as well, and like also didn't excel in math and science.
Yeah.
Were you always good at being vulnerable? Because I feel like your vulnerability is like a superpower, and it makes it you makes it's framed so strangely to be vulnerable and to be soft in society. But I actually think it is a superpower because it allows for you to connect with so many people, and it comes across to me as strength.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I do think that being vulnerable does obviously take strength. Like anybody in media, all you guys, like you have to be that way because anybody has access to you at any time, or at least that's how everybody always feels. So I think that that kind of softened me up to being vulnerable is that like I can say something and somebody can text me and I'm reading it in real time telling me that like they don't like my voice or I don't know anything because I'm a woman or like, things like that. So it's like I'm used to that. And I feel like over the years, my skin has gotten tougher and tougher because I've realized how little it actually does affect you if you don't let it. So it's kind of like worked itself out. But I actually came to this realization the other night at this like at a book event. One of my girlfriends was moderating the event and was like, she asked me a question about where I get confidence from.
Mhm.
And I had this like realization that the only time I've ever struggled with confidence and like saying what I want is in situations where I wasn't comfortable because of my body or because of the way that I look. Like I've never been second guessing myself because I don't think that my brain is where it should be or that I don't know anything. I always like you can ask my fiance, I always think I'm right. I'll be very certain in my way, but if I'm not certain about the way I look, that's the only thing that pulls me back. And it was like a really interesting thing to realize. So I think I've
Mhm.
always been okay with being vulnerable with my voice, but not necessarily being vulnerable like in front of a crowd.
Mm. Yeah, that feels like a relatable sentiment probably
Yeah.
for a lot of women, especially too, because that seems to be this thing that you feel as though you're judged on, and you are judged on by many people like right away. And that's, I think, the crux of one of your most viral poems was about body image, and I love it's everyone probably has heard it. The piece of audio around you don't remember how no one's impressive enough in a bathing suit at a public pool to ever really remember for long, but and it's
Yeah.
so true
Yeah.
and it gets in your way. It does like it can. Yeah, I feel that. I think every woman probably feels that.
Oh, yeah.
I've
I know
often
bathing suits are
talked,
just
yeah. In my experience too, very similar to yours, Josie, was and being your age, certainly. I was 30 when, just about 30 when I signed my record deal. So I always say to the girls, I was a full grown human being. I wasn't 16 or
full
17.
frontal lobe. You were all there.
I was all grown up, and but I remember early days of having an enormous amount of confidence, but very little self esteem. And people often
Yeah.
asked me how that could coexist, and it absolutely could coexist. My confidence is what let me kind of maintain kind of low self esteem and somehow still manage to succeed. The self esteem I kept building on as time wore on, and eventually I just became completely unstoppable, and that never changed. But it's amazing how we can live. There's this parallel existence going on in us, and women in particular, I think, because we are subjected to a completely different set of rules than men in the arts. And
I think you're
like
onto
you
something with that. Like, I think if people really could, like, in their minds, understand that they are confident, but with a low self-esteem, and how you can both can exist at one time, like the way that you
Mhm.
just phrased that, I think that's really profound. Like,
Yeah.
you should write a poem about
Well,
it.
She's got a poem
I
coming
talk a
later
lot
today.
about it. I do a lot of speaking engagements every year, and it's one of the points that I hit upon. And I see the audience, like I said, women in particular, which is mostly the people that I speak to. Um, when I get to that point, there's this kind of rumbling recognition that goes through a crowd because I've struck something that they instantly know what the feeling is that is living in their chests.
Yeah.
And they're
Yes,
relieved to have it identified.
Totally. That, like, just the way you phrase it, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I've been
Yeah.
trying to say. Yeah.
I will let you write the poem, Josie Balka. Do not try and get out that easy. Um, when this book came out, when you got the box of books FedExed or delivered to your home, and you opened it up and you saw this, I want you to just talk me through, what that felt like, and, obviously the sense of accomplishment, and maybe the suspended idea of what your reality was, and how your life just changed in that moment.
I feel like it's just been like the craziest road. And I was saying this other, like, I don't even know if I fully have come to in understanding what is going on. And like, even when I went to Indigo to get one of my books because I wanted to see what it felt like, I feel like I haven't caught up yet. You know what I mean? I am not fully prepared, but I got a box of galleys, which is like soft cover versions of my book.
Yes.
Um, I don't even know when, like 6 months ago, maybe, or 7 months ago. And that was my, like, oh my gosh, this is my book in my
It's
hand.
weird. It's so
It is
weird.
so weird. And then when I got the hardcover one with like the jacket and everything and like the writing on the back and stuff, I was just like, whoa, I can't believe that this is happening. But I think the real moment that it really hit me was I was laying in bed with my fiance on Tuesday night, the night that the book actually came out. And I was like, I think people are like in bed right now reading my book, like all over the place. And he was like,
And
I hope so.
and being profoundly moved and changed by simple sentiment. I mean, and it's much deeper than that. You're a very gifted writer. You're economical in a sense. You're very accessible, and I think you're phrasing how you explain something doesn't leave anybody out. There's
Yeah.
an academic nature to literature, poetry in particular, sometimes, um, which sometimes just leaves a reader completely baffled,
Well, a lot of the
feeling
time you
like,
can like dissect, right? And you can kind of wonder, like, does it mean this or does it mean this?
and that's
And like,
fine. That's
oh, and
fine.
it's amazing. Like it's a gift to be able to write something that can be approached from 800 different angles, like, and
Yes.
have theses written about them, and like that's incredible. But like Caitlin, based on what your question was, like, what was I like in high school? I had trouble understanding stuff. Like I had trouble grasping science books and reading Shakespeare because I like couldn't wrap my head around something that wasn't so like simply laid out. And it's not because I'm dumb. Like I've always been like really good at like spelling and understanding and whatever. But when it came to, I don't know, I can't explain it. So my goal here is that everybody can digest what I'm writing, and maybe you can interpret it as like you miss your friend, or you miss your mom, or you miss your brother. You know what I mean? But either way, the feeling of missing is still the same, and
You're
the
writing
words to
from
describe it.
emotion.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want
Yeah.
it to be like you read it and you know exactly what you just read, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great to be able to have a thread that goes through your work that people can hang on to. It's almost like a lifeline. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Emily Dickinson. I don't understand three-quarters of it, not going to lie.
Yeah.
But I can read things again and again and again and just be like, here she was freaking 200 years ago, sitting in a little room by herself and yearning for love. And oh my God, she just breaks my heart apart so much.
Yeah.
But I'm so impressed with this book. I've read it from beginning to end. And I was very gracious. It was very gracious of your publishing company to send us copies of it.
Oh gosh. I was so
Um,
happy that they did. That's awesome.
yeah, I'm going to get you to sign this for me one
Yeah.
day. I know that you're in Calgary, but I'm just blown away by, you're giving a lot of people hope and inspiration. There's so many people that are sitting, they're doing their job. They have their jobs that they're doing, and I don't think they look beyond that they're capable of, doing other things. I mean, here you are. I'm sure a lot of people thought, oh, are you going to quit radio now? Are you going to just go do this and travel the world? And I don't know, is that an option that you would ponder if this really took off financially, and is radio something that you'd want to leave behind? I mean, you're very good at it, and you're doing a morning show, which is a dream of a lot of people.
Yeah, I obviously get asked that quite a bit, like by my friends in the industry and outside. Just obviously being an influencer in this day and age, and having a following on social media for a lot of people is more than enough to
Mhm.
continue, and as of right now, like being in Canada also, we don't really have the same like basis of financial support from
Yes.
being online exclusively.
Well, we're also missing 300 million people in the equation too.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. But no, as of this particular moment, I mean, Caitlin, and like I could be like, oh, tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen in this industry. You never do. And as of right now, the way that I look at it is I'm so blessed because my co-host Greg has become one of my closest friends and favorite people,
Yeah.
which I don't think you often get to say about your
Mhm.
co-host. I mean, a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't get that opportunity. And right now, the way that I look at it is like I get paid to wake up in the morning and go hang out with my friend and talk to really nice people in the city that will live in forever. So as of right this second, I don't feel a pull to not do that. And it also, luckily, with my hours, just gives me time to write and also to not stress about like everything needing to be monetary because I
Mhm.
have a job. So it's like it's helpful to kind of clear my head and be able to write from the heart and not write from a place of like, I hope I could sell this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that being said, is it completely out of the cards? Obviously not. Like this is really like you never know. But again, media is such like an ever changing landscape. They could knock us off the air and syndicate tomorrow. So you never really know.
Oh, I know
Sarah,
well.
questions.
But
Yeah.
I also, you will
Yeah.
get tired of waking up at 4 a.m.
Oh, I still
Yeah.
haven't gotten used to it. I'm like,
You
do you think
can't,
I'll
you never do.
ever not be
You never do.
tired?
You never
My
do. And I remember,
luckily, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember someone asked Howard Stern that once. Like they were like, "Oh, I mean, when did you get used to the hours?" And he had been on the air for decades and said, "Absolutely never. You just don't get
My
used to it."
mom is on the radio in Toronto, like
Okay.
now,
Oh,
and she's like
what
in her
station?
late 680 news, like for Roger.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
And she's been on there for so long, and we're both always just tired. Like we're talking, being like, "I'm tired. Are you tired?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm really tired." And it's just a constant like being tired, too tired to do anything, and you're just like mean to everyone all the time. But it's nice. So I'll come home, take a nap, and then write some poems. I don't know.
No, I was just gonna say, like for the writing process, like I know Jan has, a way that she writes where she's dedicating a slice of the day to sitting down and writing. And I'm sure a lot of these things that inspire your poems are happening like, you're at a Taylor Swift concert, for example. That fan poem was beautiful. So
Thank you.
yeah, like how do you keep track of all the thoughts? Is it like, you're one of the guys from Metallica leaving yourself voice notes? Like how does it work?
My notes app. I wrote the whole book in my notes app on my phone. So like, and then I
What?
went through and pasted everything into Microsoft Word only because the book people, like the Simon Element was like, you have to hand this in on Microsoft Word as part of your contract. I was like, well, guess I'll buy Microsoft Word. So I
Okay.
like went through and pasted everything into there. But Jan, I'd be curious if you feel this way when you're writing. Somebody described it to me once as like a thing, like ideas kind of literally feeling like they're dropping from the sky and into the top of your head, and you don't know where they came from, but you just feel
Mm,
lucky that they fell into you.
yeah.
That's how I feel. And I only really write about things that I've been through. I get a lot of requests for
Yeah.
like really gut wrenching things that a lot of people go through on a regular basis that I haven't
Mhm.
been through yet, at least. And I feel like as sad as it is, I'm just gonna wait until I do, and then I'll be able to relate. But as of right now, I'll hear like a word, or like even right now, what you just said about confidence versus self esteem. Your brain starts like tornadoing. You're like, oh my god, like this line, you know what I mean? And I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. But
Yeah.
it feels like you got chosen as somebody who gets cool ideas dropped in,
Yeah,
and
it's
that
just
like
like
is a
tuning a
blessing.
radio. It's
Yes.
just tuning a radio. And as a
Yeah.
creative person, you've got choices in front of you. And there's a lot of choices because there's a lot of things that go through your mind. So when you're making a conscious decision to pick out a group of words and put them on a piece of paper, that's where the humanity, I think, comes into it, because we are really all living in this giant pool of consciousness. And we have shards of billions, not millions, but billions of shards of images, ideas, words, thoughts, particles of information that come through us every day. That's on the low estimate of what scientists think the human brain is dealing with, because it's doing things we're not even aware of.
Hmm.
So as an artist, even when I was a kid, I started writing music when I was like 10 years old. And I still don't read music. I have no theoretical comprehension of music, and I produce
I'm
my
the same. You're
records.
just like listening and playing what you're hearing,
Yeah,
right? Like I always got in trouble for
exactly.
that in school because
No,
my piano teacher could not understand what was happening. Like she's like, it
because
sounds
she
right.
needed a map.
It's not right. Yeah.
Some people need a map in life. I
Yeah.
didn't want a map. I wanted to make my own map, and that's exactly what you're doing. And you should be, honored by something that you've allowed yourself to do, because you're always going to risk criticism. And that's what art's about. But I hope you go into it, and you can answer me this. I'm extremely selfish about what I do. I don't write for other people. I don't write for the listener. I don't write for the reader. I don't. I'm extremely selfish. Everything I do is self-serving and fulfills only the purpose of my own enjoyment. If by chance somebody else likes that, then I'm lucky. But what are your feelings about that?
I do find that like if I am writing and I find myself in a space of I'm writing this because I think other people are gonna like people don't ever like it as much as they do when I write about something that I've been through that I think might be a unique experience, but it never is. Nothing ever is. And yeah, I definitely try to be selfish about it and just write about the things that I understand. And I'm really lucky to have like a partner who also can understand that I'm still writing about guys I knew 10 years ago, that like hurt my feelings, even though he didn't. And
Bless
he's
him.
fine with it because it's obviously been really beneficial to my career and he understands that like we're getting married. So obviously
Yeah.
I'm over it. But it's definitely like I am selfish about what I'm writing about. And that's why I get so many amazing requests and stuff in my DMs for these uh, incredible experiences that people have had, whether they're good or bad. And I'm like, I can't write about that because I haven't been through it, and I have to stick with that. But I do agree with you on that.
Just one more question before we let you go, because I know you've got things to do and we appreciate you being
Okay.
here so much. What is there an elusive poem, do you think, that lives in your heart and is perhaps part of your process, always trying to create that piece of perfection that just is at the tip of your fingers and the tip of your thought process and at the very far corner of your heart? Does that kind of propel you to keep going forward, is to better yourself and to better what you've done already?
Yeah, I think, and that can be a blessing and also a curse, right? Because if you're always trying to
It's like
do better
golfing.
than the last one, yes, like exactly. And I feel like there's always a part of you that's like, I haven't even reached the top yet. And it's a positive because it makes you never stop, but it's also negative because it makes you not appreciate all that you've already achieved. And I remember talking to my therapist about this once. I was like, what if, like, it was after that one poem did really well, at the end of 2023. And I was like, what if that's it? She's like, what if that's it? What if you got that one thing and you'll always have that? Nobody can ever take that away from you that happened to you. And if it never happens again, it still happened. And I
It
was
even
like,
sounds
oh, yeah,
poetic. The way you're saying it now, it's a poem.
maybe I'll write it down. See, look, another idea.
Yeah.
But like it is true. And I think that yes, I am always striving. I always feel like there's something on the tip of my tongue. I'll always go back and listen to something that I posted and be like, oh, I wish I said that differently. I feel like it would have hit harder if I started with this line, or maybe more people would have stopped if I got to my point faster. And like, or Steve will listen to one and be like, I love the second half of that. And I'm like, shit, I should have posted that. I should have reversed it. So like things like that. But it's yeah, it's a blessing because you never stop working, and then it's a curse because you never stop working.
Well, it's a blessing that you are out in the world and that we're all walking the planet together. It's pretty cool. And you really are a very exceptional young woman in every way. And I wish you so much luck with I Hope You Remember. It's a brand new book of poems on loving, longing, and living by Josie Balka.
It's such a
Oh, we got
beautiful
all
cover
a
too.
little out of the book. It's actually kind of a funny story because we had a cover workup and it was
Mhm.
bright pink and like cartoon and it was
Mhm.
really pretty. But and I accepted it, like I said yes. And then we went like 2 weeks after I was like, yeah, that's perfect. I sent an email. I was like, actually, I don't want that one. And they were like, okay, well, it's a little late because we have to hire, like, I was like, I want something completely different. Originally, I guess I said I don't want any blue. And then I was like, I want something blue. And they were like, what are
They're
you
like,
saying? So they sent me this and I was
Yeah.
like, that's it. Like
are they meant
we're
to
good.
be puzzle little pieces?
No, it's like I think it's like a public pool. Like that's the way that I
Yeah.
think of it.
Yeah.
It's little people in a swimming
That's
pool or
little
in the
people in a swimming
ocean.
pool. That's what
I
I
saw
saw.
puzzle pieces.
Listen, Josie Balka, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back and check in with us, and I hope you'll have me on 105, your country radio
Anytime.
station. I wouldn't mind going in one morning and just talking about my, how
Your
sad I
country
was about
career.
my country career going sideways and that I
Come on
never.
in. Literally anytime you want, come in and chat with us.
Okay, Josie Balka, go out and get the book. I hope you remember. We'll
We'll
be
have
right
the
back.
info in the show notes.
I hope you remember is out now, Josie Balka. Get the damn book and support her. She's a Calgary girl. She and I are going to stick together, man. Maybe we'll write a song together. You never know. Welcome back to the Jann Arden podcast and show. That was amazing, guys. Josie Balka. Wow, it's inspiring me. I want to go write poetry. Like I want to be more observant about the world that I'm living in. And I
Mhm.
want to think about the things that I'm seeing far more creatively now. I think
Mhm.
Josie brings extraordinary to the ordinary. And as we have witnessed on social media platforms all over the place, yeah, it was great talking to you, Josie. So thank you if you're still listening. We're going to just say wonderful things about you from here on in.
And I also do want to remind any of our listeners that I'm going to be hosting a Q&A with her, sort of in support of her book launch. That's going to be taking place on June 7th at the Opera House here in Toronto.
So let's put a link to the event. Do you have to register, buy tickets? What's the situation there?
I don't know.
Check,
But we'll
check the show notes.
check the show notes.
Yeah, check the show notes. And you know what? If you guys
Okay.
aren't listeners that really ever venture in there, if you're just sort of clicking on the episode, just know there's all kinds of little links in there. Anytime we talk to a guest or mention projects that they're working on, or if the three of us mention something that we're interested in, whether it's a book or a movie or an event or a concert we've seen, Sarah is always making sure that there's more information for you. So just as a little sidebar there. Anyhow, lots to talk about today. The world continues to chug along. I just wanted to bring up, and I hate talking about Donald Trump. Just hate
God,
it.
here we go. Let's go.
No, but you know what? So recently, by the time you guys hear this episode, the Chinese tariffs and the American tariffs have now been dropped. So, like, this is such a game of chicken. Like, I don't know what the man's doing, but it causes all this kerfuffle in the world. It makes people so nervous and markets go crazy. Like, I think it's got something to do with the markets. I think it's all markets. I think it's all him and his pals making money.
My whole thing with this is I've almost been thinking about Martha Stewart.
Hmm.
And I'm like, who's going to jail? Because if you're putting Martha Stewart in jail, you're putting whoever, all this insider trading in jail. And maybe it's another thing to accuse Donald Trump of.
Yeah, I think there's probably a pretty strong case to be made for some laws being broken here around investments, specifically Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know if you've seen the info on her portfolios and what she will dump mass amounts of, and then there'll be an announcement made the next day that this is obviously going to benefit her. So there are a lot of allegations of insider trading floating around. But to your point, Jan, the 90-day pause that he did just put on the tariffs with China, I don't think it's going to do enough to shore up confidence in the US and in the economy. I feel like every country is now trying to create a workaround for dealing with the US because even if he does these pauses, it's such a destabilizing negotiation tactic that nobody wants to continue to hinge all of their business on the US, which has kind of operated as like the de facto world currency for such a long time.
Well, it's just, when I saw that pop up in my news feed today, and trust me, I'm watching way less news. I don't know how you guys are negotiating your way through this stuff, but I felt like, when they talk about Trump's first 100 days, I was really in those 100 days and every day watching to see what was going to happen. And it's been a real lesson to me to actually take the advice of therapists, of people that are really trying to make sure people do live their best lives and are getting the best out of their everyday by participating in their communities and in their world, but by also separating out stuff that we absolutely have no control over. I feel better. I feel better not watching it all the time, but obviously I'm talking to you guys right now about this, and I just kind of found it laughable. So I guess the whole preamble to my point here is that all these things that seem so explosive and seem so disruptive. I think we find as time goes by and as diplomacy takes place of just weird, bizarre decision making, we see these kinds of things happening. And I think we will see that whole, uh, that talk around the 51st state and all that stuff. It's already kind of fading off. I think Mark Carney has, made it very clear. I talked to the owners of Canada and it's not for sale.
What were they calling
So,
him? Was it the Velvet Hammer or like the Velvet Wall? That's what I heard people nicknaming Mark Carney and his dealings with him because of how he was like soft but firm in their meeting in the White House. And
mm-hmm,
I kind of liked that. I was like, the Velvet
mm-hmm.
Hammer is the most badass nickname I've ever heard.
So I didn't hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, it's just nice to know that there are really good people working on solutions, and that obviously there's a lot of back channeling. So something that I initially thought, oh my God, this is going to go on forever, and it's 130% on each going this way and that way, and what's going to happen here. So that was my lesson. So I guess that's my point: is that just don't. I'm not going to stay so fine tuned to it, and yeah,
It really
it's
makes
been.
you just go like, all of that for what? Right? Like, because
Mhm.
it's like back and forth and back and forth. And hope you're glad you ruined your economy. Like,
Yeah, you can't bully
Yeah.
the economy. He can bully a lot of things, but you're not going to get the economy to bend the proverbial knee quite so easily. And I do
Mhm.
ultimately think that's kind of where I'm using way too many puns, but I'm like, that's where the buck's going to stop. Like, it's not
yeah.
going to, you can't do it. You can't mess with the markets like
Yeah.
that.
Can I ask you guys? I mean, I'm not a huge investor. I mean, I've got a little portfolio. I'm certainly not Martha Stewart. But I was watching stuff move and, that losing money, and it made me really kind of apprehensive because I thought, oh my God, I've been saving so much, the last 15 years and really trying to, be an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And then to kind of look at, from what I could understand, I'm not going to claim to understand everything about that stuff, but it was unnerving. And then I had my guy just say, listen, don't just do something, sit there. And I'm like, yeah, because if I was selling tomorrow, then yeah, it would obviously be a loss. But he's like, you're not doing anything in the immediate future. Just relax. And that's what we're seeing now as these markets coming back. So for all you guys out there that have really been watching $70,000 suddenly turn into $62,000, I think case in point is just really take a breath and just sit back. Make sure you talk to your financial people and get good advice. And don't just go, honey, we need to sell our, Woolco share. Woolco, that was random. Our Walmart. Does
It's
Woolco
like,
even
hopefully you've
exist
sold
anymore?
those.
I hope you sold your Woolco.
Boy, do I have news
Um,
for you. Not
no.
Woolco.
I
No, but
think,
it's the diversity, like it's the diversification of your portfolio,
yes.
obviously, that will ultimately matter. But then I
Mm,
think about things that you have to go into knowing that it is a gamble and that there's, lots of reward possibilities with risk, but so too would there be loss. And so Bitcoin, I find, is one where everyone kind of, not everyone, but many people I know fled crypto when there was that huge drop and sold Bitcoin. And we held on
yeah.
to ours. And the other day, my husband and I were looking at it and we were like, oh wow, it's back up. And friends and family members who are way more well versed in crypto than we are all saying, Bitcoin is sort of for your kids, like hang on to it.
Yeah.
And a crypto investor who's not irresponsible and not one of those like crazy people. He was on a podcast that I listened to recently talking about how if you can work towards buying the dip, when the dip for Bitcoin happens, just keep buying the dip to whatever amount you can afford. And if you wind up in, one day owning a whole coin, that is for your kids. And so I think there are still safe yet risky investment places. But yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about with this. I'm like you, Jan. I'm like, I'm just trying to be an adult. Like we
Hmm.
just give our money to someone who does this for a living and hope it works out.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I was gonna say, because I'm in an interesting year right now that, like, I first of all, once a year I do my annual kind of check-ins with my guy, and I also have my mortgage up for renewal. So these
Mm,
these tariffs have actually
great
been
time
kind
for
of,
that though, actually.
yes, have actually been good for, when you're looking at the rates for mortgage. So it's like actually pretty good right now and may continue to go down. My mortgage renewal is for September 1st. 5 years I've
Well,
been
yeah, okay.
in the condo. So I'm
I
like,
think. we're getting
Yeah.
real boring now for anyone who doesn't have a mortgage that's going to be up. But I think
Yeah.
they've changed the verbiage to being like back towards potentially lock in. I think it was for a long time saying stay variable, but I think we're about to enter a period where people
Yeah.
do advise you to lock in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
So
guys, I've been locked in like 2020 when I bought. I
Mhm.
got locked in at 1.9. Like, am I the luckiest bitch ever?
Oh.
Like,
I'm
so
about to like punch you in the neck. I'm
I know.
variable.
You know what my parents were
However,
paying in interest?
like,
And this would be probably the 70s, I think, when they built their house out here. They
yeah,
bought the land and they built a house for $30,000 in sort of the
it's
early
amazing.
70s. 17% interest
Yeah.
rate.
Right?
Because 17% on 30 grand was not crazy. And I remember my
Yeah.
dad telling me the same thing,
They
like,
were
because they
sick
went through,
about it.
but they went through the like 20% in the 80s too, right? He was like, oh, we lived through this crazy inflation rate. And I was like, yeah, your house was 130 grand. Houses in Toronto now are, $2 million for some people. And people have been told this is safe, just keep doing it, money's free to borrow. And they over leveraged themselves and they lost it all. Like, I think it's very different. I mean, I'm fine with those interest rates if you want to bring housing costs down. Let's get to
Yeah.
17% if my house is 30 grand. Go for it.
If you're joining
Yeah.
the Jann Arden podcast financial update, we felt that this week we'd have so many
Market
questions
Minute.
from listeners about our financial expertise, so we're welcome to offer that.
A, I know nothing. B, everyone's just skipping ahead 15 seconds at a time.
Don't skip 15 seconds ahead. It's nice to have spring here. Little shift of
Mhm.
gears. It's really nice to have spring here. It's raining today. I went out and bought some flowers. I went to the flower center. It was like going to Black fucking Friday.
I love the flower center.
I went to Costco because it's close to me. It is a
You're
lot
obsessed
cheaper.
with Costco.
Shut up, Sarah. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. And I went there. There was no carts. So getting a cart was like
So busy.
roller derby or rollerball. You're like elbow pads and shin guards, and you're like, there's a cart, and you're going in there. So I got my cart, got in there. People are beelining it for this back door where the main appliances usually are. They open these doors. There was so much shit in there that everyone was stuck. So they're trying to move plants around. I'm going to say there was 100, I want to call them gurneys, but I know they're not gurneys. There was 100 racks. Let's go with
Mhm.
Yeah.
racks. And I wanted some fucking geraniums. Well, I fought off a lot of Lithuanian women to get to my geraniums.
Lithuanian women.
It's so
Okay.
I
specific.
don't, and to get out of there, like literally, I had to keep a hand on my cart, keep an eye on how to maneuver. And people were getting really frustrated and angry, and they wanted to get to that plant. And people were like grabbing the good hanging. When I left and got in the car, I felt exhausted. I'm
Mhm.
like, what did I just go through?
But victory.
Victory was mine. I got some
Yeah.
red geraniums, some pink geraniums, some of those really great acid orangey. I don't even know what to call them. It's almost a fluorescent geranium. And I always get those in
Cool.
honor of my mom. And then I got like pansies and petunias, and I got little bits and bops of, I don't know what plants are called, to tell you right now. Everything I just said to you could be a complete bullshit.
God.
But I got them planted in, and I cannot tell you the joy that these 3 flower pots hanging on my
Yes.
deck and my geraniums are. And even if you have a deck on your condo and a little bit of space, I beg you to go get yourself a couple little plants that don't require a lot of work, maybe
Herbs
some
and
shade.
spices. Yeah.
Ah,
That's what I
Something.
usually do. I'm actually late right now, and I should probably wait if we're being honest, because I'm not going to be home for 3 weeks,
Yeah,
which I'll
wait.
tell you guys
lucky
about
you.
after.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
But I normally do I'll do maybe rosemary thyme, just like a couple little herbs on the front of my condo because I get a lot of beautiful sunlight. But
Mhm. Yeah, we
it
do.
feels like it's not going to work this year.
We do the same. Like we have a bunch of grasses. So one end of our balcony, we have like almost like a privacy screen level of grass, and then we have a couple of other planters, and it is really fun. And now you're right, Jan, is the time to go because a
Yeah.
lot of the grocery store Canadian Tire type places that will sell flowers, they're not the best at watering them, and so you want to get in there with the first run because after that they kind of like dry out and aren't as
Yes.
great. And one of my
Yeah.
friends is a very very talented, I mean, she is almost a floral artist Follow
she
her on
come and
social.
see
Her
me?
handle is Kenilworth Floral, and she always says
Sorry, Kenilworth?
Kenilworth,
Kennel.
Show notes.
Kenil.
Show notes. Don't worry.
Show
We'll
no
put it
it's
in
show
the
Show
show
notes,
notes.
notes.
folks.
But if you go see her on IG, she knows everything about flowers. And she said, you are going to get some amazing flowers, especially the annuals this time of year at Loblaws, at Costco, at Canadian
Mhm.
Tire. Go and stock up because they do not water them and they become compromised within a few weeks.
Guys, we have to shout out a listener who owns a
Please.
flower shop.
Let's do it.
Oh.
So this is the most random thing, but for Mother's Day, I know I was going for self-care for my sister,
Mhm.
but we ended up having a shuffle home from the cottage because it was too much for Joanna to come up to the cottage, and we were going to just convene in Richmond Hill for Mother's Day. So on my way home from the cottage, I ended up being like, okay, I'm just going to grab some flowers, a couple for mom, my Auntie Lisa, it was her birthday, and then something for Joanna. So I go into this random flower shop, literally looked in Google Maps, typed in flowers, whatever was the closest is where I drove. And it was on my route home. So I go into this place. It's called the Floral Studio by Fiore B. So Stevie's with me and we waltz in and she goes, "What's your dog's name?" I say, "Stevie." And she's looking at me like she's like, there was just a look in the eye. She was a listener of our podcast. Okay.
Aw.
She didn't want to say anything about my sister, but she knew about, how the last few years had gone with my sister. And she was like, "I didn't want to say anything, but I'm so happy things are going well." She said she loves the podcast. She ended up making some beautiful friggin' arrangements. Like, I never even thought I was a flower girl. And yesterday I was like looking at these flowers and I'm just like, they're so beautiful. I could
It's
cry.
artistry.
You're inching towards 40, Sarah. You're a flower
Dun,
Is that
girl.
what's
dun.
happening? Anyway, Fiore, thank you so much. The flowers were gorgeous. Everyone was so happy. And
Yay.
to meet someone at a little shop that I randomly chose that listens to our podcast was equally cool.
Well, thanks
So
for
sweet.
listening.
Yeah.
And I love that she asked after you. And I think we forget that doing this
Yeah.
podcast every week. And we do have
Yeah.
hundreds of these things, folks, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Is that there's always stories that we go back to and that we revisit. And if anyone was listening a few weeks ago when I was talking about going to meet my longtime manager,
Yeah.
that we sort of parted ways and ended up fixing something that I didn't even really realize needed fixing. But much like your story, Sarah, I had somebody comment to me, oh gosh, just when that podcast came out about, I'm really glad to hear that you went and talked to Neil. Like they just used his first name.
I
Like
was just going to say, and they said Neil.
they said Neil. And it really made me think about a relationship that I have with my brother-in-law. And I'm
Oh,
like, but it's just, you don't even, I was at Safeway. I just went in to grab a few
crazy.
things. I was looking for asparagus, which I did not find, by the way. We're not there yet. But anyway, yeah, I just said, I really made me think about my brother-in-law. And this is a man. This wasn't a female listener. This was a male listener. So,
Cool.
I'm glad that that our tales of woe and, making a few mistakes can kind of make you guys realize that we're just much like you, very much like you. We're just trying to figure it out.
Speaking of which, I just did a quick check. We got lots of voice notes. If
I'd
love
love
when we
to
get
do it.
voice
Do we have some
notes.
time?
we got some time, if you
Let's
want to
hear
listen.
some.
Love to.
Okay. I'm marking clip because
Can
I'm
we
uploading.
remind listeners that we don't pre-listen to these?
Sure.
So we
Let's
don't know
remind
what we're going to
listeners.
get. So just so you know, we're not going through and just picking people that have an affinity towards our show. There's people that, like last week we had a woman
Yes.
saying, don't really like that you have a Patreon and that you charge people.
Maybe we have a response on that.
Oh God.
Let's
Okay,
see.
here we go.
Okay, here we go. Here's one.
Mhm.
Hello, good afternoon. I want to introduce myself. My name's Scott Oiko. I'm a Canadian War veteran, semi-retired, still working here in Kingston, Ontario. I wanted to pitch an idea for a podcast. I sent you a message earlier. I'm not sure if you'll get it. I recently published a book called The Last Rotation, Afghanistan, a War Diary, my personal account while I was there on the last tour that the Canadians were on. Anyway, I was hoping to hear from you and wish you all the best day. Bye.
Well,
Just a
first of
little
all,
business
Scott,
pitch.
yeah, but thanks. And you know what? Don't ask, don't get, right? We will absolutely consider you right now. We're kind of booked a little far in advance, and it might not be quite a right fit for our show, but you never know. And but thanks for touching base, and I'm glad that you know who we are. And congratulations on writing a book. First of all,
That's so
it's
impressive.
huge.
it's really impressive, and thank you for your
Mhm.
service. Also,
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, I love when we hear from the dudes, right? Remember when we did our live show? There were like 3 dudes in the room and we were like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's another.
Hi there, it's Karen from Halifax. May I just say, in this crazy, mind numbing, topsy turvy, noisy world, your podcast and being a member of your book bag is the simple joy and getaway I chose for myself. Thanks to you three lovelies and this community. Steady on to all of us. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
See, now that chokes me up.
Mhm.
Oh, Karen.
I don't know what I'm going through. Maybe I'm dropping my last egg here.
No, it's happening right now. No.
And mic drop and egg drop.
Insert sound effect.
No, it makes me emotional. You know,
Tear
like I
me up
said,
now.
I know now
it
Sarah's
is a
tearing
crazy
up. It's
world.
contagious.
I
Well-
dropped an egg too.
I think, well, you guys know what it's like. It's,
Yeah.
you know, we're talking to each other week after week, guys. We're not, you know, we really are going to make some announcements in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Sarah's got a holiday to do. We've got summertime stuff happening, but going into the fall, we are definitely going to host another live event. And I promise you, we will have more information about that. But listen, like I was going to say, is we're talking into the void here. We are on a screen looking at each other and we touch base every week. And obviously we have topics that we want to talk about, but we don't always think, we don't have anyone laughing along with us. It's just us. We don't have anyone crying along with us or saying, oh, I did that too. That, all those things are just out beyond our
We
reach.
need to
So
hear from you after.
it
Yeah.
really, yeah, it makes such a difference. So, and thank you. We're really enjoying the book bag. Just a
Mhm.
reminder that Death on the Island is our book by Eliza Reid for this next like 3 or 4 week period. And that's available everywhere. So, but anyway, thank you very
Great.
much for your message.
And that's what I really also like about the book bag tier on Patreon is that it does create a little sense of community. It's not going to be of interest to anyone. And we're certainly going to continue to talk about books and our love of reading in the regular portions of the show. But I do really think the book club meetings are a nice way for everyone to connect. And it's the nicest dang group of people you could ever come across. Like one book bag member is making bookmarks for the other book bag members. I mean, it's just,
Come on.
so that's the thing. Like, I think that Karen hit the nail on the head. Like, it is kind of a crazy, messed up world out there. But in your day to day life, your own community that you create can be a real break from that, which is nice.
We got 2
Mm.
more. You ready?
Oh my God, this is great.
Do you have
Yeah.
more eggs for this? Okay, here we go.
Hi there, Jan, Caitlin, Sarah. It is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to the mothers and all of your mothers and the people who you love are mothers. I'm just listening to your Friday podcast, and I was struck by the comments about the crazy Leaf fans. It's really funny, actually. I moved from Newfoundland 30 years ago, and prior to that, I grew up as a Bruins fan, so you can imagine what it was like when I first started expressing that arriving here.
I'm surprised she's still
But
alive.
I've taught at a school here for about 20 years now. And you talk about your Leafs fans. I have one colleague, dear friend, who actually invited Doug Gilmour to her wedding. He didn't go. I had another one who followed
That
Matt
makes sense.
Sundin into San Remo's Bakery. And I
Oh,
think anyone in the
that's in my
West End would
neighborhood.
know where San Remo's is. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
she bought bread but didn't meet Matt's. But it is a pretty powerful love of hockey here. But we shouldn't forget about the Toronto Scepters. They're doing pretty well right now.
Good
At the
point.
game
Yes.
on Friday night, which is where myself and my wife were, Billie Jean King was there. It was pretty cool, actually. Major
Amazing.
supporter of women's
Wow.
sport and hockey in particular. So
Wow,
that was
wow.
awesome.
Love
And
that.
anyways, just wanted to say I love that podcast. I love spring in Ontario too. And
Just talking about
have
that.
yourselves a wonderful week. Bye now.
That was so nice.
Well, listen,
Thanks for those.
I love ending the shows with these great comments. And once again, in the show notes, you can find the link to leave a voice note. It's super easy. You don't have to go www/hyphen/semicolon/podjan/voice mic/. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to do that. You can just go into the voice notes. Sarah, Caitlin, always great to see you.
You too.
Our wonderful guest, Josie Balka, was amazing. Run and get her book. Follow her on the socials. her spoken word, when she's reading her pieces and they are set to great images of all the stuff that we see every day, you will see them in a different light, as I do, and appreciate friendships and freaking having a cup of tea and a croissant. There's just, she really hits on those simple things. So it was great seeing you guys.
You
Go
too.
get some flowers, and don't forget to cheer for the Scepters, I guess, is our final words here.
Heck yeah.
And go Leafs, go.
Yeah, I know, but what is it? 4 games to 4 now?
So at the point of this,
kidding. That was a
at the
joke.
point of this recording, the series is tied 2 apiece.
2-2. I was just going to
2
say,
apiece.
I wonder what's going to happen when this is airing on Friday. Anyways, I feel sick over it.
Yeah, we're gonna book therapy.
Okay.
And Patreon, guys, I got an update.
Go
Okay.
do it.
Well, on Patreon. So come on over to Patreon.
Oh, I was going to say, what is it? No, you have to come too, Jan. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. Please subscribe to us. You can leave us a voice note anytime. Like I said, you can hit a little review. You can leave us some stars. That helps people find us as well. We always want to grow the pod, and we want to make sure that our voice is going out into the light of all the people. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time. Toodly-doo.